Hello there, I'm Kios the Ronin Beatmaker, and welcome to Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And on this episode, we're going to discuss the link between autism and Neanderthal DNA. Strap yourselves in. This one's going to get a little kinky. And we're going to be doing a little bit of a deep dive as well. But with all things in Lounge Ronin, I implore you to go out there and do your own research, as you may be surprised at what you discover about the world and yourself. So without further ado, let us get into it. Now, this article was written June 15th, 2024 by Nathan Falday. Study reveals stunning link between autism and Neanderthal DNA in humans. A fascinating new study has revealed a surprising possible source for the presence of autism in the human population. Performing a careful analysis of human genetic variations that have been linked to interbreeding within Neanderthals, researchers have found evidence to suggest that our long extinct Neanderthal cousins may have given us DNA that contributes somehow to the development of autism. The DNA in question has also been connected to other troublesome traits in humans, including language delay and repression of various types of intellectual disabilities. In an article just published in the journal Molecular Psychiatry, a team of psychics, a team of scientists from Clemson University in South Carolina and Loyola University in New Orleans explained how they were able to discover this unexpected genetic connection between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, or modern humans. The data they obtained showing the sharing of autism related genes emerged from a study of Neanderthal DNA in three ethnic populations: African Americans, white Hispanic Americans, and non Hispanic white Americans. Now, the reason why they are categorizing white Hispanic Americans as white is because um, if you are from Spain, technically you're considered white. So I think they're going with that in terms of why they're calling it white Hispanic Americans, or they're going with the preference of, of a mixture of white and Hispanic Americans. But don't worry, we're going to get into the nitty gritty. This is the first study to provide strong evidence for the active role of a subset of rare as well as some common Neanderthal derived alias in autism susceptibly in multiple major American populations. The study authors wrote, noting the historical significance of their results. As of now, there is no specifically identified cause for autism, which means any research that sheds light on its origins can be considered groundbreaking. I would, actually, you know what? I'm not even going to say that. We'll save that for another episode. Regardless of the importance of this find, the scientists acknowledge that more study of the genomes of individuals diagnosed with autism will be required to reaffirm their results. But based on what has been discovered so far, the scientists fully expect their findings to be confirmed once more of this type of research has been performed. Exploring the genetic legacy of Neanderthals in human genome. Neanderthals disappeared from the Eurasia landmass approximately 40,000 years ago. It is generally considered that the pressures of trying to coexist with modern humans who migrated to Eurasia from Africa in large numbers around 48,000 years ago ultimately doomed them to extinction. Comparatively, studies of the human genome and samples of Neanderthal DNA recovered from skeletal remains leave no doubt that two species interbred. It seems the exchange of genetic material between the two took place over the course of several thousand years, and as a result, about 2% of the genomes of modern people of European and Asian descent consist of Neanderthal DNA, although some East Asia have up to 4%. Here we have an image, the comparison of modern human and Neanderthal skulls. Interestingly, people have different selections of this DNA, and overall, 20% of the genetic material Neanderthals possess can be found in one human population group or another. As for specific genetic variants linked to autism, these exist in about 1% of the human population, although that percentage may vary based on ethnicity and genetic heritage. Quote, in our study, we found that autistic people, on average, have more rare Neanderthal variants now that they have more Neanderthal DNA in general. Emily Casanova, the new study's lead author and Loyola University assistant professor of neuroscience, told the science publication SciPost, quote, that means that while not all Neanderthal DNA is necessarily influencing autism, susceptibly, a subset is. End quote. In their research, the scientists from Clemson and Loyola universities use a technique known as exome genetic sequencing to search for DNA linked to Neanderthals in the genomes of a group of people with autism and in their siblings who were unaffected by the disorder. Using this sophisticated analytical methodology, they were able to identify 25 Neanderthal genes called single nucleotide polymorphism SNPs that were notably more common in the individuals diagnosed with autism. Some of these SNPs were quite rare, meaning they aren't frequently found in any human genome. And here we have the graphic that reveals the total Neander scores linked Neander scores between autism and control groups. I'll give you guys a few seconds to take a peek at that. As previously mentioned, the suspicious DNA sequences were discovered most frequently in samples obtained from African Americans, white Hispanic Americans, and non Hispanic white Americans. According to researcher Emily Casanova, this discovery will open some eyes in the genetic research field. Quote, I was rather surprised that many of the Neanderthal derived variants we found that were associated with autism dramatically varied by ethnic group. She stated, quote, to me, it suggests that our tendency to whitewash genetics and ignore variants that aren't implicated across all genetic backgrounds means that we're missing out on a lot of important genetic factors. End quote. And I would say that part of the reason why we're dealing with that is the fact that many of these fields of science are still dealing with various forms of racism and having to unlearn the various systems that were put in place that diminished or disregarded other ethnic groups other than white people. So that is something that we have to take into consideration when it comes to these types of field of studies. Unfortunately, that is the reality of the world that we live in. Let's continue. Tellingly, this DNA was also much more common in individuals from families that had a history of high rates of autism. This finding offers strong confirmatory evidence that the rare DNA sequence that originated in Neanderthals really are a major factor in the development of this neurological condition. For good or ill, Neanderthals helped make us who we are. While they were looking exclusively at the connection between Neanderthal genes and autism, the researchers believe that other links between Neanderthal DNA and modern human characteristics will eventually be discovered. Quote, we hope this research will lead to further investigations into ongoing influences of ancient hybridization between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals in brain development, human intelligence, and overall human health, as well as spur work into additional clinical research resources for this complex population. End quote. They wrote in their molecular psychiatry article. Intriguingly, the researchers plan to launch a new and separate study that will examine traces of Denisovan DNA found in the human genome to see if it may have some relationship to the development of autism in Asia and Native American populations. Since the Denisovans lived in Siberia before going extinct, as did some of the descendants of modern Asians and Native Americans, this would seem to be a possibility worth exploring. Now, we're going to jump on to the next site. We're going to actually look at the science paper. Now, we're not going to go through the whole thing. We're just going to hit the hot points, and then I will leave the link up in the description. And if you are really, really intrigued, you can do a more deeper dive. But let's go. All right, this is from Molecular Psychiatry. Enrichment of and this was published May 17th, 2024. Enrichment of subset of Neanderthal polymorphism in autistic probands and siblings. This is by Rini Polly, Layla Johnson, F. Alex Filtus, and as we listen to some of the quotes, Emily L. Casanova. Abstract. Homo sapiens and Neanderthals underwent hybridization during the Middle Upper Paleolithic age, culminating in retention of small amounts of Neanderthal derived DNA in modern human genome. In the current study, we address the potential roles Neanderthal single nucleotide polymorphisms (SMP) may be playing in autism susceptibly in samples of Black non-Hispanic, and white non-Hispanic people using data from the Simmons Foundation powering autism research, genotype tissue expression, and 1,000 genomes databases. We have discovered that rare variants are significantly enriched in autistic probands compared to race matched controls. In addition, we have identified 25 rare common SNPs that are significantly enriched in autism on different ethnic backgrounds, some of which show significant clinical associations. We have also identified other SNPs that share more specific genotype phenotype correlations, but which are not necessarily enriched in autism and yet may nevertheless play roles in comorbid phenotype expression, e.g., intellectual disability, epilepsy, and language regression. These results strongly suggest Neanderthal derived DNA is playing a significant role in autism susceptibility across major populations in the United States. Man, my conspiracy kufi is going crazy right now, and it is taking every ounce in my body to refrain from saying certain things I want to say. Partially because I want to keep my channel, and partially because I don't want to say certain things that will trigger people. Because I do have the data to back it up, but uh, I, I'm not going to. I am going to restrain myself, and excuse me, and we're going to focus. Apologies. We'll do a light background, and then we're gonna skip to a couple other parts. Background: DNA evidence taken from human remains from the Middle Pleistocene indicate that anatomically modern humans and other Ariatic humans underwent multiple integration events. Of those archaic humans, Homo neanderthalis, oh, hold on, let me see. Homo neanderthalensis has received the most attention, providing the most fossil material and occupying the position as our closest known cousin on the human hominin tree of life. It has been estimated that Eurasian derived populations have approximately 2% Neanderthal DNA, which is required during integration events occurring, shortly after AMH migrated out of Africa. These hybridization events occurred somewhere between 47 to 65,000 years ago. A subset of Europeans later immigrated back into Africa approximately 20,000 years ago, bringing some of this Neanderthal ancestry with them, such that all modern Africans have a small but measurable amount of Neanderthal DNA from the event. With recent sequencing in multiple archaic human genomes, there has been growing interest concerning the influence of archaic human derived alias on modern health. With regards to Neanderthal derived variants, previous groups have identified positive selection on genes relating to immune function, skin and hair pigmentation, physiological responses to high altitude conditions, aspects of metabolism, hypercoagulation, and propensity for depression. In general, dosage sensitivity genes are tightly conserved and resistant to such integration events. Most genes involved in brain development follow the dosage sensitive pattern and have attended to the resistant to integration. In support of this, Sirazassian et al. Found a depletion of Neanderthal derived variants within autism and other brain related genes in the general population. On the other hand, other studies have reported a number of non synonymous and other single nucleotide variants within neural genes that have been implicated in the condition. All right, this will be the last section and then of the background, and then we'll jump to the next section. Additional research involving non clinical populations has identified strong links between certain brain and skull morphologies and enrichment of Neanderthal DNA. Specifically, enrichment is associated with reduced globulity in the skull shape of modern populations, a finding middly reminiscent of the elongated skull morphology characteristics of Neanderthal and other archaetic crania. Enrichment of Neanderthal DNA is also associated with enhanced neural connectivity within visual processing systems, particularly between the intraparietal sulcus (IPS) and the optical cortex and fusiform gyrus, and decreased connectivity within the default mode social network. Wow. So they're even talking about elongated skull morphology characteristics as well. Now, here's something that people might not be aware of, but the elongated skulls of Paracas in Peru, I mean, a majority of them are from an extinct humanoid civilization that once existed. Because when you look at the skulls of the elongated skulls, all humans have a suture bone, which is in the back of our skull. It's this long line. Elongated skulls do not have that suture bone, meaning that they were born with an elongated skull. If you were to see an elongated skull that has a suture line in the back of it, that would indicate cranial deformation, meaning it was purposely, the child's cranium was purposely compressed. But if it does not have that in the back, then you're looking at a humanoid separate line of humans. Now, I find it funny that uh, this scientific paper is bringing that up, but kind of glossing over the fact that they are a separate genetic line to humans. But I mean, whatever. But I just wanted to give you guys that understanding when they bring up the elongated skull morphology. I do have a presentation that I have done on this. I'm debating on whether or not I'm going to put it up on my channel. But if that's something you want, please put down in the comment section that you want my elongated skull presentation. Let's continue. Okay, hold on. We'll do this one last part and then we'll head to the next section because I think this is also important as well. Importantly, many of these same connectivity patterns are recapitulated in autism, which is a major impetus for the current work. For instance, underconnectivity within the default mode network is consistently reported in autism. Meanwhile, increased connectivity within visual processing networks is also a commonly reported feature. Keel et al. Tested autistic children using a visual search task in which groups tend to excel. They identified an island of sparing in autism reflected in increased connectivity within occipital regions and enhanced connectivity in these visual processing areas to the frontal lobes. Autistic people also often have cognitive strengths in areas such as mathematics. Lucano et al. Found that during numeral problem solving, autistic children had greater activation in the fusiform gyrus and occipital lobes compared to non autistic children, again suggesting that visual processing modalities are an area of strength in autism. Interestingly, many of these features are shared by non clinical groups with high Neanderthal DNA content. Yeah, well, I might as well just finish it. In light of this evidence, in the current study, we addressed whether Neanderthal DNA is enriched in autistic people and their siblings compared to ethically matched controls. We access a whole genome sequencing for autistic probands and unaffected siblings from the Simmons Foundation Powering Autism Research Database for comparison against individuals in the genotype tissue expression and thousand genomes databases. Significantly enriched in the autism group was especially driven by rare Neanderthal derived variants, but also some common variants, which suggests weak but ongoing purifying selection towards removal of these single nucleotide polymorphisms from the human genome. Now that is effing fascinating right there. So our bodies are actively trying to remove that genome. Wow, I was about to say something. I can't say it. Oh my God, there's so many things I want to say, but I cannot say it. I may have to do a a separate video, piggybacking off of this topic. If that's something that you want, put down in the comments a follow up video to the Neanderthal autism video. All right. Um, we're gonna just read the first paragraph for materials and methods. If you want to delve into all of that, feel free. I don't want to get too caught in the weeds. All right, materials and methods. An assemblage of Neanderthal derived SNPs was provided by the Sankaraman Laboratory and has provided previously published 724. Only European specific SNPs were used in the current study due to European admixture across these various ethnic groups. The authors applied for received access to WES from the Spark database, Clements University, which is a collection of extensive genotype and clinical data on autistic individuals and their unaffected siblings. Samples have been collected from a wide range of collection sites within the US and can be found on the SFARI website. Only individuals of self-reported white Hispanic, and white non-Hispanic, and black non-Hispanic backgrounds were used in these analyses. Any participant listed as admixed was removed. Autistic individuals with potential confounding genetic and environmental factors were also excluded from the study. These conditions include cognitive anomalies, birth or pregnancy, complications, premature birth, fetal alcohol syndrome, and cognitive delays due to exposure or medical condition. Ethically matched controls were accessed from the GTEX project, Clemson University, for comparison with the Black, non-Hispanic, and white non-Hispanic Spark groups, respectively. Unfortunately, GTEX includes too small of a sample of Hispanic individuals for adequate comparison. So these were removed from the GTEX sets, and a different group control group was used for white Hispanics in the Spark group. For white Hispanics, the Mexican and the Puerto Rican ancestry subgroups from 1000G were used as controls. data that are freely available for download. According to the Pew Research Center, people of Mexican ancestry currently compose about 60% of all Hispanics within the mainland US, while Puerto Ricans compose another 9%. Together, these two groups of Hispanic compose the largest subset of Hispanic people in the mainland US and are available in the 1000G. And for this reason, these subgroups have been selected to approximate a control group utilizing a 1:6 pure MXL ratio in order to best mimic the Pew data. Alrighty. So if you're interested in getting into the weeds on that, I'll make sure to have the link up there. So we'll do the results. We'll do a little bit of the results. All right, here we go. Results. Within the present work, Neander score refers to an average of Neanderthal DNA content within a given person's genome, calculated based on the total number of Neanderthal-derived SNPs surveyed. Neander scores were further divided into rare and common for additional analyses. All Neander scores for the current study were calculated using only genetic content and did not analyze integrated regions. Total Neander scores differed significantly between ethnic groups as expected, with Neander scores highest in white Hispanic people, followed by white non Hispanics, and finally black non Hispanics. However, according to Postic analysis, total Neander scores did not differ between black non Hispanic and white non Hispanic experimental and control groups, although white Hispanic controls had significantly higher total Neander scores than Spark counterparts, which may be a reflection of a small control numbers. Okay, so let's head down to um, we'll do a little bit of the discussion. Actually, you know what? We're just going to jump down to conclusion because there's a lot in the discussion, and I think I'll leave that for you guys. Actually, hold on. We're going to read just the first paragraph because I think this is actually important for us, and then we're going to wrap it up with the conclusion. Discussion. Neanderthals experienced a prolonged genetic bottleneck, leading to greater retention of non-synonymous mutations within their dwindling population, suggesting some of these variants may still be represented in the human genome today. Jurek et al. Found that these weakly deleterious variants, though retained in Neanderthals as a result of small population size, have been under purifying selection once they entered the Homo sapiens background with access to a larger population. In support, Wei et al. Reported Neanderthal variants are significantly depleted in modern genome relative to aliases matched for frequency in the linkage diselquilibrium. Okay, so let's hit down to the conclusion. Conclusion. This is the first study to provide strong evidence for the active role of a subset of rare as well as some common Neanderthal derived aliases in autism, susceptibly in multiple major American populations. We hope this research will lead to further investigation into the ongoing influences of ancient hybridization between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals in brain development, human intelligence, and overall human health, as well as spur work into additional clinical research for this complex population. And there you have it. A little bit of a light dive into the scientific paper. Now, like I said, there is a lot of information there to digest. The fact that our genome is constantly working on trying to expunge this mutation, which is very fascinating. The fact that it's found predominantly in Americans, which is another interesting thing of note. Um, I wonder what it must be for the international community. That's a very, very, very interesting thing of note. And it also brought up a lot of also very also a lot of other suspicious and intriguing things. Like I spoke earlier about the elongated skulls. That's pretty wild that they brought it up, and they seemingly just acknowledged the fact that that was a separate species of humans. I was not expecting the scientific journal to be that casual about it, but here we are. Um, there are some other things that are very suspicious and concerning to me regarding this study and autism and certain current medical things that have been going on as of late. Um, Now, if that is something that people are interested in me talking about, leave down in the comments, please. Let us know about the follow up video regarding the Neanderthals uh, genome and autism. And if I do a follow up video, it will have to be a Rumble exclusive. I'm going to have to be completely honest with you guys, unfortunately. But I love YouTube very much, but I just want to make sure that that's apparent. So if that's something that you're interested in, just let me know down in the comments section. But this was fascinating. We got a lot of great information in here, a lot of great data, and absolutely fascinating and very intriguing. Definitely something for everyone to reflect on and to just take into consideration. But yeah, like I said, I'm amazed that they seemingly brought up the elongated skulls and pretty much confirmed, yeah, just a separate humanoid species, but no biggie. Was not expecting that. Um, like I said, there are things I want to talk about, but I can't talk about it here on YouTube, unfortunately. But like I said, if you're interested in those thoughts, just let me know down in the comments section. But this was a fascinating little dive and a very interesting look into how the human body and the genome is working. It's fascinating, you guys. Do not sleep on some of the most fantastical aspects of our life, even if it is a little boring and draining in terms of the material. But nonetheless, it was still a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. If you've made it this far, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love.